Okay, here we are again with the next race in this series of the last week of the benchmark handicap course for August, even though it's September now. The race we're going to look at today is at Ipswich, 4th of September 2019, where the rail is out 8 metres. Now, of course, in typical Wednesday racing, the rail is out at all the meetings, so we can't really find a meeting where the rail is in the true position, so we'll just pick any old race as it is. The plan, as always, is to try for these events to find a covered bet. That is to say, we look for a short price favourite that looks somewhat doubtful of winning, and then we'll try to couple it up with some other horses that look like a reasonable chance of beating it. Now, this race is not anywhere near as good as yesterday's race, seeing as how yesterday we got the first four and the four horses really couldn't do much better. But again, it's very difficult to be confident about tipping the first four, so who knows, we might tip the first four on this one as well, but this looks less likely. Of course, it hasn't run yet. So anyhow, in this race the short price favourite is this horse Fisticuffs. Okay, so if we have a quick look at Fisticuff, we'll see that he won last start. I assume it's a he, 3-year-old bay colt. Alright, so he's just turned 3. He's moved up from Sydney, alright, or New South Wales. So the horses that generally move north usually perform well. So in other words, they're not moving them for no reason. Sometimes they move a lot further north, but in this case he's gone a little bit north and they generally perform well, and as you can see, won first up, beating 6 other horses. 1200 metres, now the same distance as today. So again, most of the time you need a change. 54.5 up to 56.5. It does have the good barrier. Okay, and did run pretty good time. Anyway, from the top we'll just run through them. So Black Strata's run third last time in a 0 to 65 event. That was a 62 race, so this is a 60. He had 58, he's got 59, so he's gone down 2 and he's gone up 2. So he's pretty much in the same race, the same thing. He was first up. Again, assuming it's a he. I haven't looked at this race at all, and I don't know any of these horses. So I'm looking at this the same as what you might, from a viewpoint of simply using the system. The $5 second or $5 favourite, second favourite. Drew barrier 10 last time, he's got barrier 9. So you'd think this would be some chance of winning. Nicholas, 4th last start over 1400. So he's back 200 metres, 136 days off, so he's first up. Let's see if there's any trials. Run for the 4th of 4 in a Doomben Class 2 trial. So this is a Class 1. Without looking at the trial, you can't say much from it. He did win first up last time on a soft track. You would think a place chance. Zymatic runs second at Ipswich in the 65 race, so that might even be the same race. We'll check that later. Clearly won the maiden, stepped up in class, ran well, has to be some chance. Bell's Pluck, another Ipswich maiden winner, raced handy and won by a little bit. Similar race, up a kilo, has a reasonable barrier draw. $23 on the TAB and $55 on the market. Couldn't have run that well, so you would think a place chance. Depth Below won its maiden last prep on a wet track, and then it's run a number of placings since then, all from pretty good barriers. Today it's got a worse barrier. It looks pretty unlikely, so I'll prefer that one. Whatever that name is there, it ran 6th first up at Grafton. Now this is another one, but he's already been back and forth to Queensland and back. Failed first up on a wet track, didn't do well on the heavy there. Didn't run that well there, so this horse may improve on the dry track because it won a Gold Coast maiden on a good 4. So this could be an improver. First up though, has barrier 1. Did win a trial, which again has had 2 trials. This is where it doesn't mean anything. They won the trial by 6 lengths, which sounds great, but it only beat 2 horses, so it means absolutely nothing. So you would have to think this horse, on face value, could be some chance. Fisticuffs, this is one we've already talked about. You'd have to say some chance. Brocky, he's again 95 days off, so he's had a sort of slightly longer than a let up. been running in some of the better races and performed well as a 2-year-old. Hard to say whether it's going to fire or not first up. It's also ran third in a Deakin trial, so can't read anything into that. I generally don't like horses coming back from 2-year-olds to run in 3-year-old races, but some of them go on, some of them don't. It's impossible to say. You'd have to say some chance. Twerk. It's won a maiden last time. Fillies and mares maiden at least. 54.5, has 54 again. Could improve. It'd have to be some chance. East Esplanade coming from Pureform. It's already had 15 starts for only 1 win, but it has had 5 placings. It's a sort of horse where you can't really see it firing. Beaten 7 lengths last time. You'd have to be preferring this one. Tiz, 6th at Bow Desert is hardly inspiring form. 54 race last time, and this in theory is a 60, so he's up, but down at the weights. Has the claim for the 3 kilo apprentice. It's very short in the market based on some of these runs. Now, the problem with doing these races is that most of these horses, their best runs are still ahead of them. This horse, Tiz, probably the best run is behind it, and so we'd have to be preferring it. And Tugula Trump, say that one 5 times. Won the maiden last preparation. It's come back, really hasn't fired, so you'd have to be preferring this. And well, we've gone around once, so let's sort it according to our chances. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potential chances, plus we've got this odds on favourite. Let's have a look at a few more things. We can look at the gear changes. Bring that into the screen. Nicholas has been gelded. Now a lot of horses improve after being gelded, so that's one to look for. AIO Loss has got a tongue tie for the first time, which may or may not improve it. It's also running first up, so it's probably unlikely to perform well, but it potentially could go well. The runs, we don't really have much in the way of runs. We have these two run against each other, Zymatic and Black Strata, both as potential chances in what we're looking at. The other thing to look at is the sectional times. Looking at the sectional ratings, sorting highest to lowest. Zymatic and Black Strata both ran well at the top. They run over 1200 metre races, and then we have Fisticuffs not far behind, in fact equal with pretty much, there's not much between the top, the top 6 of them in terms of the ratings. Fisticuffs raced handy and made up 1 place. The second last rating, Fisticuffs is the second top pick behind Black Strata, who made up 5 places. The trouble with Black Strata is he's drawn barrier 9, so he's almost certainly going to be getting back, and so it's going to be hard for him to run home, whereas Fisticuffs on that last run will be up racing on the pace, going on its last run where it raced second, coming from barrier 5, so it's got barrier 2 today, so it's certainly not going to be caught wide. The difference with this race compared with the last race the Fisticuffs won was there was absolutely no pressure in that race. They did run fast time. The difference here though is, if we have a look at the summary, is that you see here all these horses, or in fact Tiz has got 2 wins, so I'm not sure where the other win was. That doesn't really matter, it must be in a class B or something like that. All the other horses in this race have all won a race. And that's the big difference between a horse going from a maiden to into a class 1, is that, well, in a maiden no horse has won a race. Every horse in this race has won a race, unlike some class 1 races where, you know, only a few of the horses have won a race. So this is a much stronger race. Fisticuffs from barrier 2 is going to have to be ridden out to race handy, and so that may be enough to beat it. On the other hand, that may not be enough to beat it. So anyway, in summary, I'm not going to do any more work on this race as such. I would be looking to lay Fisticuffs for the win, and have a small wager on these others, which are quite long priced. And in fact, the other second favourite, we've eliminated that one completely, so that's interesting. Oh well, the third favourite. The beauty about these sort of races is sometimes when the rail's out a long way, by the time they get to the last race, the horses are running home all over the place because everybody knows you have to be handy to be able to win. Now, sometimes at Ipswich, the leaders have such a huge bias that anything coming from behind has no hope. So ideally you would be looking at a few of the early races to find out whether there just seems to be some huge leader bias on the day. If it is one of those days where there's a huge leader bias, well then chances are Fisticuffs is going to just race handy and be too strong. But if they are running home, then I think the old Fisty is going to end up with the cuffs on after this race. We'll see what happens. That's it for today.